welcome to our Unit 8 test review. As you can see by the title, it is mainly fractions. We will be covering 6 different areas, specifically how to convert fractions to decimals and percent, comparing fractions, okay, which is greater than the other, and then adding and subtracting fractions. We are going to add and subtract mixed numbers, as well as list fractions in order from smallest to greatest, which is also comparing fractions. Okay, we have to take a list of fractions and put them in order from least to greatest. I'll show you a trick to doing that, or the best way to do it. And then finally, multiplying and dividing fractions. When we multiply and divide fractions on the test, you will also have to do them in a word problem, not just, you might read, for example, Frank drank 2.5 cups of water in the morning and 2.5 cups of water in the afternoon. How many cups of water did he drink? At that point, you can multiply 2.5 times 2, or you can just add 2.5 plus 2.5. Okay? You just have to figure out what calculation you need to do. But let's go ahead and start with converting fractions from fractions to decimals to percent. Okay, let's convert. We must start by converting this fraction into a decimal and then multiply by 100 to get the percent by 100. So it will be 7 divided by 8. Or you can just simply do what I've taught you in the past with the trick, where you turn this into a 70. And as soon as you turn it into 70, you must write 0 decimal, because you know it's going to be a decimal. Okay? It's not going to be a whole number. So what's the closest I can get to 70 when multiplying by 8? 70, I can do 8 times 6 is 48, and then 8 times 7 is 56. 8 times 9 is 72. That's too much. 8 times 8. If you thought 8 times 8, that would be your first one. 8 times 8 is 64, right? On the side, if it's 8 times 8 is 64, you know that you have 6 left over. Okay, you have 6 left over. Right? That 6 can turn into a 60. So, 8 times 7, we said earlier, 8 times 7. You put the 7 here. 8 times 7 will give you 56. And now you have 4 left over. Okay? And that 4 can be turned into a 40. And then 8 into 40 is 5. Right? So then you write the 5 there. And then to turn that into a percent, just multiply by 100 and you get 87.5%. Okay? If that was confusing for you, just remember that what we're really doing is we're dividing 7 divided by 8. So why don't we go ahead and try just dividing 7 divided by 8. The numerator divided by the denominator. Okay, let's try that. So like we said, 7 divided by 8. Okay? How many 8s are here? There are none. And this is why I told you to write 0 decimal, just like you did up here, the 0 decimal. And then this turns into a 70. Right? Just like we did up here. It turns into a 70. You see? You're following so far? So how many 8s are in 70? We said 8 of them. Right? And we said that it would be 64, which gives us 6. Remember we wrote the 6 and then we turned it into a 60, right? Okay, so how many 8s are in 60? We said there were 7. 8 times 7, 8 times 7 is 56. Okay, we subtract that and we get a 4, and we make it a 40. And then 8 times 5 is 40. And there we got our 0. So there's your decimal. 0.875. And to turn that into a percent, we just multiply by 100. Right? which moves the decimal 2 places, from here to here to here. It moves it 2 numbers to the right, makes it bigger by 2 place value. And our percent would be 87.5. I hope that makes sense. Go ahead now and work on number 2, 3, and 4. These have been simplified, but this has not. What is this if you were to simplify it? 6 and 12. Simplify that and turn it into a decimal and percent. As well as 2/3, turn it into a decimal and a percent, and 3/4 into a decimal and percent. Okay? Go ahead, pause the video and do those. Okay, I hope you paused the video to complete number 2, 3, and 4. Okay, if you haven't, please pause the video now. Give yourself at least 5 minutes to complete 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and these are the answers. As you know, this one already, we did it together. It's 0.875 equals 87.5%. 3/4 is 0.75, like 75 cents, which equals 75%. When you simplify 6/12, you get a half. Okay, here's 1 6 and here's 2 6s. 1, 2. You get a half, which is 0.5, which is also 50%. And 2/3 is 0.6 bar notation, because 6's continue to repeat themselves, equals 66.6 bar notation percent. Remember, for me to go from here to here, I must divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay, let's move on to number 2. Comparing fractions. When comparing fractions, you want to make sure, well, there's 2 ways to do it for sure. One is, and this is going to work every time, is just simply take your fraction, okay, and divide the numerator by the denominator and get your decimal. And do the same for the other one, get your decimal, and then whichever decimal is higher will be the higher fraction, what you're looking for. I believe they might ask you which one's higher, which one's lower, okay, are these 2 equal? All right, for this one, I'm going to ask you which of the 2 fractions is higher. That's one way to do it. The other way, many of you already know, is simply by finding landmarks. Is it close to 0? Is it close to half? Or is it close to a whole? Okay, like I just said, is it close to 0? Is it close to a half? Or is it close to a whole? Okay, like 1/1, 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, 15/15. Okay, that's where you have to find the landmarks. Well, let's do this one by doing landmark, because I know we've already practiced dividing numerator by denominator. But let's do it where we find the landmarks. We have 7/15. Okay, 7/15. What is half of 15? Because over here we have a half. What's half of 15? 7.5. So we're missing 0.5 from having a half. So clearly this is close to half, very close, but it's just under half. If I had to put it in a spot, I would put it right over here, just under the half. And over here, we clearly have a half. That one would fall right on the half mark. So which one is higher? You say a half, you are correct. Okay? That means that you use landmarks, these landmarks down here, to solve your answer. All right, try these questions on your own. Okay, go ahead, try these 2, write them down in your notebook. This is section 2. Okay, comparing fractions A and B. Okay, pause the video now and then check for your answer. Go ahead. Okay, the best way to go about this is to go ahead and turn these into decimals. For example, over here we have 3/8. You know that anything that's out of 8, 1/8 is 12.5 or 125, 0.125. But 12.5% plus 12.5% is 24. So 2/8 would be 25%. Right? 3/8, you got to add another 12.5% to it, and it makes it 37.5. So this right here is 0.375, or we can say 37.5%. I've taught you in the past that anything over 9 is the numerators in the 10th decimal place with bar notation. So 4/9 is 0.4 bar notation. If it were 5/9, it would be 0.5 bar notation. If it was 6/9, it would be 0.6 bar notation. But 6/9 is 2/3, so it would be 0.2 bar notation. Anyways, anything over 9 is that number with the bar notation. So as a percent, it would be 44.4 bar notation. Okay, so clearly this one is higher. 1/8, like I just explained to you, is 12.5%. Okay, and 1/7. This has more value. This 1/7 has more value than 1/8 because it's out of less. Think about it. If you have a pizza and you cut it into 7 pieces, this one piece will be bigger. The same size pizza, except this one you're only cutting into 7 pieces. You know this piece will be bigger. But if you take the same pizza and you cut it into 8 slices, the one slice will be smaller. This slice is bigger than this slice because it's cut out of the same size pizza, but only 7 slices have been cut out of it. So you get a little bit of that 8th slice. So clearly, 1/7 is larger. You can go ahead and change it into a decimal, both of them, and compare. Okay, let's move on. Okay, now adding and subtracting fractions. Let's start with just simple adding simple fractions. First thing you always want to remember to do is to find a common denominator. So what is a common denominator for 2 and 8? If you are thinking 8, you are correct. Okay, because both of these numbers, when you go through their multiplication tables, will have a product of 8. Okay? So what did I do to the 4 to make it an 8? To the 2, I had to multiply by 4. 1 times 4 equals 4. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. I multiply this by 4 so I could get 8. So I multiply the 1 times 4 so I can get a 4. Did I have to do anything to this 8 to get the 8? No, I did nothing to it, so I do nothing to the 5. And the 5 remains a 5. Okay? Now I just simply add 4 plus 5. I get 9 over 8. But we're not done because that's an improper fraction. We can ask ourselves, how many 8s do we have in 9? We have 1. And what's our remainder? We need 1 more to get to 9 over 8. So 1 and 1/8 would be your answer. You are not done until you give me a mixed number. You cannot finish on an improper fraction. Remember that. Okay, go ahead and try this one on your own. Pause the video now.